Good morning and welcome to the Department of Safety and Professional Services Board Member Training. I'm Renee Parton. I'm an attorney supervisor with the department, and you'll see me pop in and out from time to time throughout today. And now I will turn this over to the DSPS Secretary, Dan Harris, who will provide a few remarks for our presentation. Thanks.
I do appreciate everybody taking time out of their schedules. You know, one of the things that we've noticed over the last few years, especially as we've brought on numerous folks to board service who haven't previously had board service, is that board service is sort of a unique responsibility here at the department. You all are responsible for being the policy experts and policy gurus for your various professions, as well as ensuring the safety of the public who you serve in both your professional capacity as well as your board capacity. And one of the things that we recognize is that board service is sort of a unique responsibility. And even here at the department, board service at DSPS is even more unique than just board service generally out in the public. And so it really became apparent that we needed to provide an annual training and hopefully more ongoing training about what it means to be a board member and what each of the roles that are on a board have, what are the responsibilities of those roles, and how we can ensure some consistency of application of those roles across our various boards. We hope to build over time a library of these trainings so that as we bring board members on, each board member can view these trainings, and then annually we'll augment these trainings with new topics and things that are more current and top of mind for folks who serve across our board. So I really appreciate the time today, but I'm really excited. So with that, I will turn it back over to Renee.
Thank you, Secretary. Our first presentation is from the Division of Professional Credential Processing, which is responsible for all the credential application processing, including determination of credential eligibility and renewal. The division is responsible for licensure, renewal, and verification of health, business, trades, and manufacturer homeowners and community credentials, operation of the department's customer service center, and the regulation of the state's unarmed combat sports program. Our first presenter will be Nico Rude. He is the division administrator for the Division of Professional Credential Processing. Nico oversees approximately 50 employees who process initial and renewal applications for the health, business, and trades professions, and can also supervises the call center for our service agency. Nico will be providing you with an overview of our credentialing division. Then you will hear from Sarah Norberg, who is an attorney supervisor for the credentialing legal team. The credentialing legal team reviews applications that involve legal issues, such as conviction records. Sarah will be providing training for those of you who are serving or will serve as a credentialing liaison.
All right, good morning, everybody. As Renee mentioned, I'm Nico Rude. I'm the division administrator for the Division of Professional Credential Processing. I can tell you that both Sarah and I are really happy to be here today to talk to you a little bit about the division and how we can work together to advance credentialing in the state of Wisconsin. So for those of you that are new to this position, I just wanted to introduce a little bit about how our division is structured, how we exist to support you all, and talk about some of the changes. And for those of you that have been serving for a while, I want to talk about some of the changes that we've had throughout the past year or so, and how we're continuing to seek changes to improve credentialing here in Wisconsin. So first and foremost, we are, you kind of heard a little bit of a brief overview of the organization. First and foremost, something that's a little bit unique is that as the division, we oversee the customer service center. So if you call DSPS, you will get somebody from our division answering the phone. So if anybody, any of your members of your professions are calling the agency, we work with them on questions they may have, and also with the general public. Other than that, for you specifically, again, just some background, what happens behind the scenes here is we do have 3 primary teams, each assigned to a supervisor. We have 2 health teams and a business, trades, and manufactured homes team. If you'd like to see a list of that, please reach out afterwards. We provide a list to see which team your profession falls on, and to see which supervisor deals with those professions. We are always open to working with you all and with your representatives, your liaisons, to improve and to answer questions you may have. The other thing that I'll just mention real quick is that we just did reorganize to have our second health team. So we just hired our second health team supervisor in the last couple of weeks here. So that's something that's new, that if you have been serving as a board member for some time, may be a difference. And so again, please reach out through your liaisons if you have questions about which team your credential falls under, and we can get you that information. Some of the things that I just want to hit on real quick are some of the evolution of the division over the past year. As I mentioned, the first and foremost, just to tie back to what we just talked about, we did create an additional health team. This was in response to an exceedingly high demand for credentials in the state of Wisconsin. We are seeing unprecedented demand for credentials here in the state. And so we, especially during the COVID pandemic, we saw an increase in volume in our health professions. And so to better respond to citizens and customers, we created a second health team with a supervisor all its own to respond to those needs. We also moved some of our supervisors around. So we had some supervisors that have been serving with the agency for quite some time that had lots of expertise, that knew the background on lots of things, and we tried to optimize where they served in the division to help meet the needs of customers as well. The other thing that we just did recently is we reorganized our workflow. So people were oftentimes getting credentials in a process that took different times depending on the credential, but maybe not hearing from us as frequently as they would have liked. So we just reorganized our workflow to make sure that customers are hearing more often from the division and the department to make sure that even if their credentials getting processed, they are hearing more frequently from us and therefore can have a better understanding of where they are at in the process. So we're really proud of all these changes, and I do think that as we continue to go through this, we're going to evolve more, and your feedback matters. So please, as we do go through these changes in process, please communicate any feedback you might have, and we're here to serve you, to serve your professions, to make them optimized in the division, and to be responsive to your needs. So how we can also do that is by clarifying not just the organization and maybe some of the changes that have been gone on in the past couple of months and year, but also to understand that language and words matter. So a lot of times some of the confusion arises from the fact that people maybe don't understand where things are coming from. So that's where we can help you, and further communication to understand how we communicate things is going to be really important. So continue to ask the questions, continue to work with us to make sure that we're saying the same things, speaking the same way, so that you can communicate with our agency the most efficient way possible. So one of the big changes, of course, over the past year as well that I didn't hit on is the launch of Licensee. So some of you might be familiar with Licensee, but for those of you that are either new board members or in what we call business professions, you'll know that we just went live with our business professions and Licensee in the last couple of weeks. But Licensee itself is still a relatively new system, having come online just a little bit over a year ago. 2 weeks ago or so was our year anniversary of using Licensee as an application. So Licensee is an online self-guided application system. And it has gone through evolutions even since it launched a little over a year ago. So for many professions now, you can submit online for both initial and renewal applications. And so I just wanted to hit some of the big points that I would offer for Licensee, and then of course be open to questions that you might have about this online system or the division in general. So I'm going to go through this. First and foremost, when we talk about language, one of the big things that we often get questions about, and something that you should be aware of as you field questions from members of your professions, but also for yourself, is this application status button here. So when you log into Licensee, checking your application status is really, really critical, and it helps us to communicate with your applicants as an agency. And that's because you can see here An example, licensure, what that will look like when you click that button. There's two different applications that this person has applied for. And over on the far right side there, you can see something that says status. And just below that, it tells you the status of each of those applications. And this is kind of that first piece of language that I hope we can all get after here, is the difference between pending applicant input and credentialing team review. So as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we really want to be more communicative with our applicants, help people understand where that status is, and understanding that fundamental status is going to be really important, particularly because we are actively working on applications that are in the status of credentialing team review. So oftentimes we'll get people that contact us and say, hey, I haven't heard anything in a month. What's going on with my credential? We'll go and look at it and it will say it's pending applicant input. So pending applicant input means it's awaiting the applicant to take action, to upload a document, to provide us more information. And we are not taking that time necessarily to focus on applications that are in pending applicant input. We do endeavor to try to review some of those, but obviously we want to make sure that vast majority of our time is looking at applications that are in credentialing team review, because that means an applicant has taken a step that requires our review. So if you have an applicant that sees their status as a pending applicant input, knowing that when they communicate with the agency, they should say something like, hey, I believe I've submitted everything, but it's in pending applicant input, can make a big difference in figuring out where the confusion might be on the status of their application. So that's one thing I'll just mention there. The other thing that I want to go over here is the due diligences. So the due diligences is a checklist that tells you what is required for your specific license type. So a couple of things I'll mention about this. First and foremost, this is an enhanced understanding of exactly what you need for your application. And so as an applicant, or if you're helping one of your applicants, letting them know first and foremost, hey, this is pending applicant input. Is there anything you need to submit? You'd find out what you need to submit by clicking on this button to view your due diligences. And again, using that language, if you do not understand, or if you're calling the agency or contacting the agency in a way that I'll just describe here very shortly, using the terms due diligence, hey, I don't understand this entry on my due diligence checklist. And using the verbiage that's in that, and maybe saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Those kind of things will help to break down some of those language barriers between the agency and for individual applicants and customers. So those are some really big language pieces there. I highly recommend that you are aware of those for yourself, but also as you speak with people out in the community, in your professions communities, that those things will be very helpful to understand how we speak to each other. The reality is, though, that even with that understanding, or people that have gone through applications over many years, they may have difficulties, or they may not understand exactly what's going on. And so we actually have launched in licensee here a new request support tool, which you can find on the landing page of licensee if you do not have an account. Or if you've logged into your account, it'll be at the same location. It'll be slightly different screen, because obviously this is the login screen here. But you can request support through licensee on any issues you might have through credentialing. I highly recommend that if you are looking to get answers from the agency, you use this tool and provide as much information in that as possible. We will get lots of requesting support tickets that just have one sentence in there and say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. Obviously, we want to be helpful, but that doesn't give us a lot of information for what this person is doing next. Giving application number, giving what exactly you're stuck on, providing as much information, being as explanatory as possible in your support ticket is going to help us to help you. So when things do get lost, people get lost, right? They don't understand what the next steps are that they need to do. Or if they think that they've done everything they can do and it's still in pending applicant input, this is the tool that I would highly recommend you use in providing as much information as possible. It's not on the screen here, but as I mentioned, you can log into your account and create a support ticket. I would highly recommend that if an applicant can log into their account and request a support ticket, that they do that, because then it links it to their applications, it links it to that person themselves in the system, and just further enhances that communication piece with the agency. So, and the visibility for our folks that are going through this. I'll tell you that right now, we just instituted this process within the last month or so, and we are, for routine support tickets like email address changes or password difficulties, things like that, we're responding on average within 48 hours of the customer submitting that support request. For more complex issues, we endeavor to respond within a business week. Of course, sometimes that's not possible for various reasons, but that is our endeavor to do that right now. So just another way that you can communicate with the agency. Of course, will have your liaisons that Sarah will talk about here shortly, which is another way that you as board members can communicate with us. But for people out there in the community, highly recommend that they do this. They log into their accounts, request support through that. We can take a look at their applications that way. And they're not having to hang on the phone or call back, because they can actually see that support ticket in their account and check the status of that at any time. So highly recommend this. I also am available for any questions on either the division itself or licensee in general. And I don't know if there's any questions yet, but with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah. And if you do have questions, I'll be here till the end. So thank you very much.
Good morning. As Renee and Nico mentioned, my name is Sarah Norberg. I'm an attorney supervisor at the agency, currently heading up the credentialing legal team. And I'm here today to provide a little training for those of you that are serving in the credentialing liaison role. This slide shows an overview of what I plan to cover with you today. First, I will introduce the role of the credentialing liaison and the types of reviews you may receive from department staff. I will also cover how the reviews are delivered to you and the importance of timely responses. Second, I will discuss in more detail the most common types of legal reviews you may encounter, including arrest and conviction records, professional discipline, and reciprocity or endorsement applications. Finally, I will briefly touch on conflicts of interest and recusal. So each year, or as often as needed, the boards appoint credentialing liaisons. This usually occurs at the first meeting of the year, but can occur at other times as needed. A board may appoint one or more credentialing liaisons, including alternate liaisons. And the role of the credentialing liaison is really to assist department credentialing staff in determining whether applicants meet licensing requirements. As the credentialing liaison, you will be contacted by credentialing department staff when we need your subject matter expertise to make a determination on an application. And I've identified the most common review types that you might receive. These include reviews of education, an applicant's experience, including foreign work history, supervisor approval, approval to test, pending charges or convictions, reciprocity or endorsement, professional discipline, malpractice claims, and any other non-standard issues. The boards often delegate authority to staff to review and approve many of these issues. Those delegations are generally done at the first meeting of the year as well. But when boards have not delegated authority to staff, or your expertise is needed to determine whether an applicant meets licensing requirements, you will be contacted. Reviews will generally be sent from staff to you via email, but they may also be placed on SharePoint, particularly if they're extremely large files. For these reasons, it's very important for you to keep your preferred email address on file with the department. And I won't go into the details about SharePoint right now. That will be addressed later today in a different presentation. But if you are reviewing an application on SharePoint, please only review those applications that are assigned to you. As I mentioned, there may be one or more credentialing liaisons, so there may be other reviews for other liaisons in that same location. So just make sure you are reviewing the ones that are identified for you. If you have any issues at all with SharePoint, please contact your board's bureau assistant they will be happy to assist you. One other note here, please pay attention to what staff are asking of you with the review. If you are unsure, please reach out to whoever contacted you and we will help clarify that for you. Please note that if we send you an application for review, that application will remain pending until we receive a response from you. I'm not sure if you've heard, but our processing times have been a topic of conversation at the Capitol lately, and that includes applications that are pending with credentialing liaisons. We recognize that review of these files can take some time, and you serve a very important role in that process. Nevertheless, the timeliness of your response is important as well. Please let us know if you will be unavailable for any extended period of time, and we will attempt to get that review to someone else. So if you plan to go on vacation or sabbatical, you know, have any other issue that might prevent you from timely responding to reviews, just let us know, and we will reach out to someone else on the board. For reviews in which department staff are recommending approval of an issue, generally these will be recommendations coming from the credentialing legal team attorneys. The statutes provide authority for the review to be approved if you fail to respond within 10 business days. You may indicate that additional time is needed to make a final decision, or further information from the applicant is needed in order to make a determination on the application. But you must communicate that to us within the 10 business days of the email. So that was some introductory housekeeping on the credentialing liaison role. As I mentioned, I'm the attorney supervisor of the credentialing legal team. So my expertise lies in the legal reviews, which will comprise the bulk of this presentation today. Some applications involve legal issues that need to be reviewed. The most common types of applications that need legal review involve pending charges and convictions, professional discipline, and reciprocity or endorsement. These types of issues will first be reviewed by the legal team. And if the legal team needs your assistance, either due to the fact that we don't have delegated authority from your board to handle these matters, or we need your subject matter expertise, we will be contacting you to assist with the application review. These will generally come by email. We will provide you with a brief summary of the issue, the applicable law, generally attached supporting documents, and provide you with a legal recommendation. We'll be asking whether you agree, disagree, or would like to discuss further. The bread and butter of what we do are pending charges and convictions, or CID reviews. Most boards prohibit licensure for those applicants who have arrest or conviction records subject to the Wisconsin Fair Employment Act. Thus, applicants are asked on both initial and renewal applications whether they have pending criminal charges or convictions. If they answer yes, we run a criminal background check and collect pertinent information. We frequently refer to these types of reviews as CIB reviews. CIB stands for Crime Information Bureau, which is a division of the Wisconsin Department of Justice that provides us with the criminal background checks for applicants. Now on to the Wisconsin Fair Employment Act. I mentioned that most boards prohibit licensure for those applicants who have arrest or conviction records, but that is all subject to the Wisconsin Fair Employment Act, which is codified in the Wisconsin statutes and identifies that no licensing agency may engage in any act of employment discrimination against any individual on the basis of arrest or conviction record. Further, it is an act of employment discrimination to refuse to license any individual because of arrest or conviction record. There are, however, exceptions. The first exception are pending criminal charges. It is not employment discrimination because of arrest record to refuse to license or suspend from licensing any individual who's subject to a pending criminal charge. If The circumstances of the charge substantially relate to the circumstances of the particular job or licensed activity, and the charge is for an exempt offense or a violent crime against a child. An exempt offense is usually the most serious types of charges, including homicide, battery, sexual assault, and kidnapping. The second exception from discrimination is for criminal convictions. The statutes indicate that it is not employment discrimination because of conviction record to refuse to license or to bar or terminate from licensing any individual if they've been convicted of a felony, misdemeanor, or other offense, the circumstances of which substantially relate to the circumstances of the particular job or licensed activity. The Fair Employment Act sets forth the procedure by which we can refuse to license or bar or terminate from licensing based on arrest or conviction record. It indicates that if the agency, DSPS, along with the boards, refuses to license an individual, the licensing agency shall state its reasons for doing so, including how the circumstances of the offense substantially relate to the particular licensed activity. We also need to allow the individual to show evidence of rehabilitation and fitness to perform the license activity. If the individual is able to show that rehabilitation and fitness to practice, we are not allowed to prevent them from getting licensed. These two requirements do not apply if the conviction is for an exempt offense, which I mentioned earlier would be the most serious offenses such as homicide. Some competent evidence of sufficient rehabilitation and fitness to perform the license activity may be established by honorable military discharge, completion of probation, extended supervision or parole, 1 year elapsed time since release from incarceration without subsequent convictions, compliance with terms of probation, extended supervision or parole, the nature and seriousness of the crime, the circumstances of the offense, including any mitigating circumstances, the applicant's age at the time of the offense, the amount of time that has elapsed since the offense, any letters of reference that the applicant may want to submit, and any other relevant evidence. So by now you've heard me mention multiple times substantial relationship or substantially related. But what does that mean? A substantial relationship occurs where the tendencies and inclinations to behave a certain way in a particular context are likely to reappear later in a related context based on the traits revealed. This is set forth in a court case from 1987, and the court indicates that the crux of the inquiry is the circumstances which foster criminal activity. For example, the opportunity for criminal behavior, the reaction to responsibility, or the character traits observed of the person. This is an issue that is decided on a case-by-case basis, considering the circumstances of the offense and the profession for which the applicant is applying for. Here are some examples of convictions that may be substantially related to a particular profession. For example, for a private security guard, a conviction of retail theft or criminal damage to property may be substantially related to the profession. Tax evasion or fraud would likely be substantially related to someone in the certified public accountant field. Forging prescriptions would be substantially related to those trying to become a registered nurse. Burglary, breaking and entering, criminal damage to property may be substantially related to someone entering the real estate profession. And finally, illegal possession of narcotics may be substantially related to someone trying to become a pharmacist. One final point about the Wisconsin Fair Employment Act. It provides a procedure for an individual to apply for a predetermination on whether their conviction record would disqualify them from obtaining a license. This is called a predetermination application, and the department has forms for this type of inquiry. A couple of special things to note about this process is that the board and the agency have 30 days to render a decision on these types of applications. The decision will also be binding upon the board unless there is information relevant to the determination that was not previously available, such as a new or subsequent conviction. A predetermination that an individual is disqualified based on the conviction does not mean that they may not be denied for other reasons, such as test failure, prior discipline, inadequate education, so on and so forth. So the CIB reviews probably make up the bulk of what the credentialing legal team does, but we also handle a couple of other types of frequent reviews. The next one would be professional discipline. Generally, an applicant may be denied licensure or offered a limited license if they've engaged in misconduct or unprofessional conduct, all depending on your board's specific statutes and rules. Discipline reviews may involve in-state discipline, prior discipline by your board. It may also involve out-of-state discipline, such as the applicant is licensed elsewhere and has been disciplined by that out-of-state board or regulatory authority. Prior discipline can also be for the same type of credential or an entirely different type of credential or license that has been issued. These reviews involve an analysis of the relationship between the professional discipline and the practice of the profession for which the applicant seeks licensure. So similarly to CIB reviews, we're looking at a relationship between the prior misconduct and the profession they want to practice in. We can also consider whether sufficient rehabilitation since the incident has been established. Another type of review that the legal team works on are reciprocity or endorsement reviews. These are applications that come from someone who has an out-of-state or another jurisdiction license that they think is similar to a license that we may issue. These reviews are based on, again, the board's standards set forth in statute and rules. But generally speaking, we review the legal requirements to obtain the out-of-state credential to determine whether they are substantially equivalent to the requirements for the Wisconsin credential for which the applicant has applied. One large misunderstanding, I think, with applicants in this regard is that the review is not of the individual applicant's experience. It is truly a legal review of the out-of-state or other jurisdictions' licensing requirements compared to your board's licensing requirements. Because this involves a significant amount of law, I have attorneys on my team who do this comparison. They generally do it in a table or spreadsheet format, and they will provide that to you with a recommendation for whether the out-of-state or other jurisdiction credential is equivalent or substantially equivalent, and make a recommendation to you for you to let us know what you think. If you ever have any questions or concerns about these reviews, we're always happy to speak with you. You can email us back, we can schedule a call. Want to make sure that you're comfortable with the determinations that you're making. So the last item that I want to speak with you today about is conflicts of interest. Board members are charged with making decisions that objectively represent the voice of the public, members of the profession, and those seeking entry into the profession. This means that as a board member, you're not an advocate for a private interest group or professional association, or even your personal opinions. As a public official, you are held to the highest standards of ethical and professional conduct and should strive to avoid any relationship, activity, or position that may influence the performance of your official duties as a board member. A conflict of interest is a type of interest that would result in some benefit or perceived benefit to you, or a bias or perceived bias in favor of or against a particular matter. Under any of the above circumstances, you may have an ethical duty to recuse yourself from the matter. Some factors to consider in deciding whether to recuse are whether the issue at hand involves a colleague, friend, family member, or someone with a close business or social relationship to you. If yes, then it may be proper to recuse yourself from the matter. The more remote the relationship, professional association, or knowledge becomes, the further you may be removed from any bias. You must consider whether you can render an impartial or unbiased decision. It follows that you must recuse yourself from any conflict of interest that would compromise your neutrality in making decisions on behalf of the board. You need to ask yourself, can I decide the issue fairly and without bias, prejudice, or the impression or appearance of impropriety? If not, you should definitely recuse yourself from the matter. If you ever have a conflict of interest with any reviews that we send to you, please let us know and we will forward it to another liaison for your board. The role of the credentialing liaison goes to the heart of the mission of the agency, which is promoting economic growth while protecting Wisconsin's public. It is a very important role and it may come with a significant time commitment, but your expertise is greatly valued. We couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much for listening to me today about the role of the credentialing liaison and for serving in this very important role. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or if you've thought of any questions for Nico about the division as a whole or our new licensing software licensee, we're happy to take your questions.
We have one question so far from Robert Brokert from the Hearing and Speech Examining Board. It's for Nico. What are the applicant's instructions to make the licensee process less confusing in the first place? Is there a frequently asked questions section to lessen the applicant confusion?
Great question, thanks. Yeah, so first and foremost, we highly recommend that any applicant seeking licensure in the state of Wisconsin does thorough research into the requirements of the profession. So obviously that can come from if they're in a school, there's folks at their school that can assist them with requirements. If there's obviously people in the profession that serve that capacity, they can get information from their professional colleagues as well. Ultimately, all of it is found in law, right? So they can find that information there as well. But to answer the question, there is also frequently asked questions. Going back to this page here on the main landing page of licensee, right under where it says apply for a license, you can see about halfway down that section says frequently asked questions. And that's another great resource for people if they're new to licensee, where they can get information. There's also a licensee customer information page slightly above that. You can see the link to that. And so that has some additional information on the system and different profession-specific information, as well as far as which professions are in licensee currently and whether their profession is there. So those are some great resources that the department provides for applicants as well, outside of the what we talked about earlier.
Okay, we have another question, also from the Hearing and Speech Examining Board from Kathy Pazak. Could you please comment on the compact states, compact licensing for healthcare professionals? There is a bill pending regarding hearing and speech professionals joining the compact. Thank you.
I might need a little bit of clarification on what exactly they're seeking clarification about, I guess.
Kathy, if you could hear it, if you'd like to do a follow-up, but my inference from her question is mostly how does compacting, compact licensing impact our process when we have a new compact come into play?
Yeah, so right now compact, just technology piece of that, I guess we'll talk about that first. Compact licensure is outside of licensee right now. So there's that piece for the technology. So that will impact credentialing for applicants, some information. Again, when it comes to applicants themselves, if they're confused, they can obviously see that list of professions, as I mentioned earlier, on the customer information page. But if they do have any questions, and of course, as boards as well, you can reach out to the agency. But if an applicant, they can always request support and say, hey, I want to apply for compact licensure. I'm not seeing that as an option when I go into licensee. Requesting support would be a way to get an answer on that question. But as of right now, compact professions are not in licensee. When it comes to the compact, you know, and I would just say this as a general rule for the division in general, right? We are responsible for, to boil down to the very basic, verifying that people meet the requirements that are set in law, right? So we're not going to set those requirements. We're going to just make sure that we're verifying that they do meet the requirements that are set forth, right? So when it comes to things like the compact, right, that's going to play out through, you know, once we pass, you know, law that says we're going to be part of this compact, it's going to trickle down and come to our division. You'll hear more from other divisions later for how that trickle down looks, right? But we're then going to just verify that applicants are meeting the requirements that we are essentially given, right? So that's a really important relationship that I think applicants sometimes don't understand either, right? We are not in the business of setting professional requirements. We are in the business of making sure people meet those professional requirements, right? So hopefully that answers the question, right? But you know, again, if people are have questions about why this is the way it is, right? Those would be questions for other divisions or the board, yourselves as board members. If you as board members feel that we are, you know, again, going back to the role you heard about here, right? That, oh, hey, actually this is clarification, or we can further improve that process of how we verify. We're more than happy to have those conversations, but that is our role in this process.
I just want to thank both Sarah and Nico for their presentations today and giving us some great information on what credentialing does and how it interacts with our boards. We did get one more question. Is there any update on the automatic reciprocity in licensure if one has a license in another state?
So I don't know, I haven't seen the very latest, but I do know that that's something that the legislature is looking at. I can say that. I haven't checked probably in the last week or so whether that's advanced or not, but it is something they're looking at. And again, going back to what I said earlier, if that's something that the legislature puts in law and the governor, you know, signs, then we'll of course act on that as we're required to.
Thank you very much.